Alrighty, it's 9:30 and I'm just waiting to see. We've got some people popping on here in a minute. Want to make sure we give a couple minutes just for everybody to connect, because I know it takes a little bit of time for us to connect. So if you are on, go ahead and comment in the chat. If you're on the forum page, go ahead and comment that you're there, just so that I know that I'm not, here speaking to myself, because that would be weird. So I love teaching classes, and this is a new way to do it. Meryl's on, awesome, thank you. Gotta get your husband to support you, right? If anybody. So, and then I've got a Facebook user says they're here. So perfect. I know that we've got a couple people jumping on here, and here's the deal. This class is all about stop wasting your time. So that being said, it's 9:31. I want to honor the people that are here on time and ready to start. And one thing that I can promise you, that as we move through this content, my goal is that you leave this class with some strategies and some tools that you can implement right away. So we got someone testing some audio back here. So use the chat feature if you have any questions that pop up, or something that you want me to address. And then also, if you've got a comment, I'd love to have that participation, because again, it's just me here in a room with a screen, and I want to make sure that we are all getting what we need out of this. So that being said, I do this training because I love to. My name's Kristi Jencks. I'm the team leader at the BIG Helper Realty Group. I'm also a Tom Ferry International coach. And if you like the content that you're hearing today, I invite you to come over to the BigHelperRealtyGroup.com. You can click on that little button right here that says the team. You can learn a little bit about us, and you can learn about our philosophy and how we love to work with agents, both new and seasoned, to help them reach their goals. And of course, we do have resources for you today. So I'll be posting the link several times, so you don't have to get distracted. But just know, if you go over to Big Helper Training, I did it wrong in my slide. Dang it. Don't follow my slide. That says train with Big Helper. It's actually bighelpertraining.com. That's what happens when you don't proofread your slides. So it's bighelpertraining.com, and you'll be able to download all of the resources that you need from today. And so with that, being said, let's go ahead and jump right into our content. So, who am I, and why am I talking about, time management or anything like that? A lot of people don't know me out there. So I want to give you guys just a little insight. So first thing is, Meryl, thank you for Big Helper Training. He did that. I'll fix it on my next time. So a little bit of background is that my husband and I, we actually became parents overnight. Like, we one day had no children, and the next day we had these 3 cute, super cute kids that you see right in front of you. And that took a lot of getting adjusted to, right? Like, I would say that I was, before waking up having 3 kids, I was like an organized, machine. I was well-oiled. I knew what I was doing. I had amazing systems and routines. I was super efficient. And then when you wake up with a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old, that kind of changes your world a lot. And I guess because my husband and I maybe were gluttons for punishment, I don't know. But then we decided that, hey, you know what? There's over 19,000 children in the foster care system here in Arizona. Let's do more. So our family quickly grew from 3 to 4 to 5. And, that's a big part of who, we are at the Big Helper Realty Group. And my husband and I, it's a passion of ours, is foster care and adoption. So then the next thing we knew is we had more kids than years we had parenting experience. And so this is what happens in a house when you don't know what you're doing, right? Like we had things under control, totally. 2 years under our belt, 5 kids, we knew exactly what we were doing. But here's the best part. As we grew our family, it didn't stop there. So we had 5, and next thing you knew, we had 7. And all of these kids came to us through adoption and foster care. And there's some sibling groups in there. But the funny part is, when I say funny now because they're 7 years old, but at the time when we were doing this, we were fostering infants. So there was like a good 5-year period where Meryl and I, we didn't sleep. It was just infants and infants, and some of those children reunified with their families, and some of them stayed with us through adoption. And that's just part of the journey. But as you can imagine, when you're raising 3 2-year-olds, I mean, they were like ants. They were everywhere and everything. And it was extremely overwhelming. And I remember just feeling like, how am I going to get through this? All of the routines that I had in place, everything that I had ever done, that just like all went out the door. It went out the door. And that didn't stop until, we stopped having new children come in. But one of the things that I remembered, it was having a breaking point. And that was when we went from 4 to 6 kids. And at that point I was like, okay, not only are we outnumbered, but clearly the routines and the structure that we had in place, it just wasn't working, right? Like we had kids in volleyball, we had kids in dance, and just kind of all over the place. And at the same time, Meryl and I had started the BIG Helper Realty Group. And so we have this growing family, and we have this growing business, taking it from 14 transactions to 60 transactions to 135 transactions. And, with amazing partners all along the way in terms of agents that we've been working with. But one thing was super, super clear. My old habits and my old routines, they were not serving me. Like I was not going to survive in this environment. And so I knew that I needed to develop, I kind of like the word playbook. I needed to develop some structure that would allow me to continue to be efficient and continue to be able to do the things that I love to do and everything that's required of me. And so I did put together a playbook because I knew from just who I am as a person, and also because I have had amazing mentors in this business, that I just needed a guide, right? Like my GPS, I needed to know where I was going. So that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. And that big, long story is just so that you guys can realize, like, I might have a little bit of experience in what I'm asking you to do. And one of the things that I tell my coaching clients, and I want you guys to remember this, I'm going to move over so my face isn't blocked in by the screen. One of the things that I often tell my coaching clients is that, there's no audio. Someone else, so Sherry says there's no audio. Someone else, like, give me a comment in the section if you can hear audio. I just want to make sure that we did not lose audio. So if someone can post in there, that was at 9:38, so that was just about, okay, so we do have audio. Thank you, I appreciate that. And I lost my train of thought a little bit, but so one of the things that I tell my coaching clients, and I think that I would have you write this down because it's really important for you to know. The hardest change when you're talking about time blocking, routines, and structure, the hardest change is behavioral change, right? Like, what I'm going to ask you to do is hard because I'm asking you to change your behaviors. And that's where you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith, right? A little bit of a leap of faith that when you change some of your behaviors, which is really, really hard, like I can't write a check. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be amazing, guys, if you could just like get out your checkbook and say, I need 2 hours, and you just write a check for 2 hours. This kind of stuff that we're working on, it doesn't work that way. Now, sometimes you can buy back time, and I will be sharing how currently I buy back time. But guys, when I had 5 kiddos and we were going through all this. I didn't have money to buy back time. I really didn't. Now I do have that luxury of buying back some of my time. So behavioral change requires consistency. It requires effort. And so I'm probably going to tell you some things that you don't like, but oh well. You're online and I'm in here, so but let's go ahead and get into my playbook. So basically, I've broken it down into 3 things. The first one we're going to talk about is routines and habits, and the second one we're going to talk about is tracking and measuring. And again, routines and habits, not sexy. Tracking and measuring, not sexy. And when I say that, I mean like it's not super fun, right? Like it takes discipline to track and measure things in your business and in your life. But I do know without a doubt that when we track and measure, we see results, right? Like what you track and measure improves. And that's why it's part of my playbook. And then the last one, I'm just going to share with you guys some really cool, I call them busy life time savers. So some apps, some technology, and that's going to lead us into a class that I'm actually going to be teaching in September. That's all about how to optimize your business, right? So using technology, operations, and systems. This is the behavioral change in the front. And then once we can start getting that in place, then you can operationalize your business. And that's where you really start to accelerate your growth. So let's talk about play number 1. So the first play, right? So we're talking about routines and habits. That's play number 1 in my playbook. Oh gosh, the first place that I would have you guys start is, looking for winning moments in your life. And then when you find a winning moment, create a routine around it. So there's 3 winning routines that I run inside of my routines and time blocks and things like that. But let me define for you guys what a winning moment is for me, and then you can kind of look at it in terms of your life. So I noticed when my kids were really, really little that, mornings were so hard, right? Like give me a heart or a thumbs up or something. Like if in the morning trying to get your kids out the door is hard, right? Like wear their shoes, wear their clothes, someone lost a backpack, someone did get breakfast, I've lost the binky, no bottles, right? Diapers. Heck, even if they're teenagers, sometimes I'm like, put a shirt on. Or like I can't keep my 15-year-old in a shirt. That it's really hard. So the winning moment for me was when I realized if I took the time the night before to get out all of the kids' clothes, right, that were not old enough to get themselves. If I put, shirt, pants, socks, shoes, everything together the night before, the next morning, it was so much better, right? Like it was a lot smoother. And that's what a winning moment is, right? Like another winning moment is when I totally know you guys are curious about this, right? How much laundry does a family of 9 generate each day? Anyone want to take a guess? Put it in the comments section. I'm just curious. How much laundry do you think? We did have a couple bedwetters at the time. Actually, like almost all of them were bedwetters. We don't have as many right now. But put in the comments, how many loads of laundry do you think that my family would generate a day? And I'll come back and I'll answer that. But one of the winning, too much, you're right, too much. One of the winning moments that I came across was if I was able to do all of the laundry in the weekend, like by Sunday night, if I had everything washed, dried, folded, put away, my week ran so much smoother. So, right, like that's a winning moment. What made it not a winning moment is when I don't do the laundry and then I don't have time to fold it. So I'm like throwing it on a couch or I'm throwing it on the fancy dining room table because I'm going to fold it eventually, which doesn't happen. And then, all week long, we're digging through that. Clothes are getting on the floor. I'm getting frustrated because I just washed all that laundry and now it's on the floor and it's got hair on it from the dog. And right, like the winning moment was, hey, let's go ahead and wash all of this laundry so that we can put it away by Sunday, and now we can have a winning moment. So I wanted you to think about winning moments for yourself. Like, when are things going right for you? Like, when is it easier for you? I'd love to see that in the comments. Like, what's a hack or something that you do that just makes the process a little bit easier, right, throughout the day. So that's when I say winning moments, that's exactly what I mean. So let's talk about the first one of my routines that I run in. And this is where I'm probably going to lose you guys. So the first one in my routines is called wake up in the F's. And what does that mean? 4 or 5 a.m., right? So when I say wake up in the F's, when you wake up before 6 o'clock in the morning, I know it's hard, but trust me, you are going to get so much done. Consistently waking up early allows, like for me, the house is peaceful, all the kids are asleep, I can run through and do things, I can focus, but most importantly, it sets me up so that my personal needs are taken care of. So one of my favorite books is called The Miracle Morning. It's glorious. See, someone else wakes up early and they think it's glorious. I will tell you guys, we generate 3 loads of laundry a day. So the answer that you guys are waiting for before I forget, 3 loads of laundry a day. It is just ridiculous, right? That's like a theme of my life. I think someone said, nothing waits on you except for laundry. Laundry is always waiting for you, and that's absolutely true. But so the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, he actually has a version that's for realtors that's also really fun. But he has this whole, they're called savers, and they take you through what you should be able to do in the morning. So my advice to you is have a morning routine, right? Like that's absolutely solid. Have a morning routine because there's a lot that you're going to be doing in the morning. One of the things that I highly recommend when you wake up early is you're going to set your intentions for the day, right? So part of my morning routine is exercise, which is super important, right, guys? You got to get your exercise. You got to get your exercise in there. You've got to, take care of yourself, because especially if you're taking care of your family, whether you're the physical caretaker of them or you're the monetarily, you take care of the finances, it doesn't matter. If you're not taking care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to show up the best you can. So exercise, of course, is one of the things that is in my morning routine. But then also I have this portion where I call them my 10-10-10. And this has been a really critical piece in developing like a really strong mindset. And I know that I had really never heard of mindset until I was in real estate. And they said, oh, you got to guard your mindset. And now I know why, right? Like this is a brutal business, right? Like, okay, raise your hand. Nobody's in class. We're all online, right? Like heart it up. If you're representing a buyer right now and you can't find a home for them, or you find a home and they have 30 offers, right? Like, oh my gosh, right? Like it is absolutely brutal right now to represent a buyer anything under 400,000, right? Like it's just, it's crazy. So we need to guard our mindset. So I have implemented something that I call my 10-10-10s. And part of my morning routine before I, jump on my Peloton bike, definitely follow me, AZ Mom of 7, if you have a Peloton, because I love riding with my friends in the morning. We ride at 5:30, just so you know, and you're welcome to join us. But so my 10-10-10s, the first 10, and I picked this up from several of my mentors. Like I think this is a combination of 3 different mentors coming together to just make my own. But the first one is gratitude. I write 10 things that I'm grateful for. That is so important because that's helping me get in the right mindset for the next 2 10s, right? So I start with gratitude. It's just a really great way to start out the day. And, it starts to prime your mind to be looking for the bright side, to be looking for things that are going to make an impact in your life. Once I finish with 10 gratitudes, I do 10 affirmations. Now, I will tell you, when I first learned about affirmations, I had heard several people. Like I remember hearing an agent that was just crushing it in California. He had this affirmation. It's like, everything I do, creates the perfect end result, and I net $1 million a year. And I was like, ooh, that sounds good. I want to net $1 million a year. So the first mistake I made with affirmations was I was adopting affirmations from other people. And there's a couple reasons why I don't highly recommend that. One, sometimes your brain just doesn't believe it, right? Like at the time when I had all of these babies and I was so tired, and Meryl and I were like, it's your turn to change the diaper. Like we're fighting over who's going to change the diaper. The thought of netting $1 million, like my brain was like, bull, right? Like it didn't believe it. But I still said it every day. So my recommendation is that you look at your goals. What is it that you want to accomplish? And then you write your affirmations in a positive mindset or in a positive way, but that are the result of your goals. So for instance, these are some of the affirmations that I have nowadays is, I have all the time that I need to accomplish all that is required of me, right? I have the time that I need to accomplish all that is required of me, right? Because I realize time is, very important. Another one around that is, I'm filled with inspiration to help those around me, right? Like I want to be filled with inspiration. My parenting one has still remained the same. I am a patient, loving mother and wife. Meryl might differ, but that is still an affirmation. And then one that I've adopted this year, right? Like we all have health goals. And so sometimes, again, maybe I'm not at my goal weight. And so I put my goal weight out there, but my mind's like, really, Kristi? Like, is that ever going to happen? And I don't want my brain to play that trick on me. So one of my health affirmations is I am committed to my health goals. I am committed to the journey and the process of getting to where I want to be with my health. So affirmations are a really big important part. And then the last one of my 10-10-10s as part of my morning routine is I write down my top 10 goals. Now, my top 10 goals are a mix of like what I need to accomplish today. So when it says on the slide, set intentions for the day, it might be like, I'm going to clean out the garage, right? Or I'm going to make my calls, something along those lines. But then I'll also have like a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, or, just all of my goals kind of in there. But writing my goals every single day does a lot of things. It keeps them top of mind. It reminds me every time I make a choice, when we start talking about time blocking here in a second, every time I make a choice, I'm able to say, is this getting me closer to my goal or is it getting me farther away? Because my goals are top of mind, I write them every day. And then if I have time, so that, by the way, that 10-10-10 process takes me 5 minutes, maybe. If I have more time, I journal, right? Like I do kind of a brain dump, and that's very, therapeutic and feels good. But let's face it, we don't always have time to do that, right? So at a minimum, I do my 10-10-10s, and that really helps guard my mindset and helps me stay on the right track. I will also say that, when you are working with waking up in the F's, that's never going to happen if you don't have a strong nightly routine. So that's why on my screen it says have a nightly routine, which means like, let's be real. If you're going to bed at midnight, are you really going to be waking up in the F's? Probably not. You're going to be too tired. So you need to plan ahead. And my kids know nice mom goes to bed at 8:30. She used to go to bed at 8. She goes to bed at 8:30 because she's an infinitely patient mother per my affirmations. But you want to plan ahead, right? So that means don't plan on waking up at 5 in the morning. If you're going to bed at midnight, it's just not going to work. And it's really not great for you. Like sleep is good. We know there's a lot of science behind why we need to sleep. And that's how you're going to reset for the day. So have a really strong nightly routine. I already mentioned some of the things that I did when my kids were little. Some of my nightly routine now is like putting out my exercise clothes, reviewing my calendar for the next day. That's a huge, huge one, is kind of doing that, like that little check of, tomorrow, what do I have to do? Where do I have to be? Kind of refresh that. So, so that's really, the first one is waking up early. And then the next one, put my little clicker here. The next one is don't wing it. This one's crucial. So when I say don't wing it, I think that it's probably possible that several of you guys, all 11 of you that I can see on this, some of you are probably winging it. And what I mean by winging it, it's like, what are we having for dinner tonight? I don't know, right? Like, we forgot to pull something out. We didn't defrost anything, right? Like there's just infinite things of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I want you to think about, what are you winging right now? Like, are you winging it with a client? Are you winging it with a listing? Are you winging it with your schedule, right? Like, or your health. Are you winging it with your health? Or do you have a plan, right? The opposite of winging it, like we're just going to wing it, is to have a plan. So when it comes to setting yourself up for, again, we're building towards time blocking, but all of this plays into effect because it's behavioral change. Because I can just, sure, I'll put a bunch of stuff on my calendar, but am I actually going to do it? Probably not. I have to make sure that I have everything in place to be able to do that. So I highly recommend that you start with a weekly planning meeting. Now, I'm actually super curious, and it makes me crazy that I don't know who's on here. So I'd love it if you would put in the comments, how many of you guys are doing e-learning right now, right? Like, so our family, we have 10 kids at our house because we have my nieces and my nephew. We have 9 children in school, and 8 of them are e-learning. So that means that we have a kindergartner, we have 2 second graders, a 3rd grader, a 4th grader, a 5th grader, an 8th grader, a 9th grader, and a high schooler. So we are e-learning or homeschooling. And just so you guys know, I was not built for that. I am not a nice teacher. I'm like the mean teacher, and I hate being that with my kids, but this is the time in my life that I have to, I have to adapt and have to change. So Sherry's raising her hand. She's got 2 beautiful girls. Her girls are perfect. Sherry, your girls are perfect. I can't even imagine them being unruly. They're so sweet and so beautiful. So, but let's face it, right now, I would say one of the number one concerns that realtor moms and dads have is, how am I supposed to provide for my family and educate my kids, right? Like, this is real. So one of the first things that I'm gonna suggest is have a weekly planning meeting. So what that looks like for me and Merrill, a lot of times I just do it myself and then I just inform him. And he knows, because I'm like, it's not on your calendar. So I scheduled you, so he knows, like Merrill knows, like if he's got something, it's got to get on his calendar, and we sync our calendars, right? So we use Google Calendar. You can use iCal. It doesn't matter. But you have to use the same calendar as anybody that you share calendars with. So like, I share my calendar with my operations manager, with my husband, so that way if, she needs to schedule me or he needs to schedule me, they know when I'm available, and we sync calendars. So this weekly planning meeting, what you're doing is you're forecasting next week, right? So you're looking ahead and you're saying, okay, I've got a dentist appointment, we've got a dance on this day, we've got, start going through the list of everything, and they should already be on the calendar. That's why I highly recommend that you have a digital. I was one of the, I was such a Franklin Covey geek. Every year I bought a whole new planner. I spent thousands of dollars with them. I had the cutest little inserts, and that was me up until about 2009, when I adopted a digital calendar. And I used Outlook for a while, but when I got into real estate, it was just a lot easier for Merrill and I to both use Google. So a digital calendar allows for that syncing. So that's going to be one of the first things. But the weekly planning meeting is where you plan ahead, right? You start to forecast what you need to do. And we're going to talk about what goes into your calendar here in just a second. But if you are not looking ahead, you have no idea where you're going, right? Like that would be ridiculous. I would never drive into a new city and not have a destination. But yet that is how some of us are driving our calendars, right? We don't know. It's not on our calendars. We're just going with the flow. We're winging it, right? Like, gosh, let's not do that, because you're not going to get as far. So I like to do mine Sunday. So Sunday night, I will actually go through and fill up the empty blocks, right? So if it's already on my calendar, I'm getting my hair done Wednesday afternoon, I have an appointment with Sherry for lunch at, Friday, right? Like, I kind of know where I'm at throughout the week. But then I go in and I start adding the rest. Now, here's one of the secrets that I love. And this is actually something that athletes do, is they start to visualize themselves accomplishing all of these different things, right? So I want to picture that for real estate. When I say visualize, I'm looking for you to visualize yourself setting 3 appointments, 3 new appointments. I'm looking for you to visualize yourself making your calls, 4 or 5 times a week. You start to see yourself doing the things that are going to be required of you. Because here's what's going to happen. It's going to hit the fan, right? Like everything's going to go crazy and change and be complicated. Your schedule is not going to, I would love it if my schedule never changed, right? And it was predictable and everything went as planned. My kids never threw fits and they were just little angels and, we were on time for everything, right? But let's face it, that's not going to happen. So that means that this visualization part, I know it sounds hokey, but if you can picture yourself already achieving the tasks and the projects that you want to do, it's going to go a long ways. Now, the other one that I say is have a weekly operations meeting. So even if you are a solo agent, this is where you check in with yourself. If you have a team, it's where you check in with your team. But basically, you're checking in on the projects, right? So the projects that you need to be working on. So when I say have a weekly operations meeting, it's where you take time aside and you say, okay, I wanted to redo my listing presentation. I wanted to create a marketing plan for the listing that I just sold, like all of the projects that you have. If you saw my to-do list, like our to-do list is super, super long. And we're never going to accomplish all of that if we don't prioritize and we don't pick and choose what we're doing now and what we're going to do later. And then we have accountability with each other and with ourselves because we know each week we're going to check in on that. And that's where a mastermind comes in really handy, is when you can work with a group of people collectively and you guys are all doing the same thing. So but that's a really important meeting that you want to have. And then I highly recommend, if you're using Google, if you go into the settings, you can actually send yourself a calendar roll up and it'll go out. I want to say mine's set to go out at 5 a.m. So when I wake up, I actually get a reminder first thing in the morning. If I look at my phone, I get a reminder of everything that I need to do, which is super important, right? Have you ever been so busy that all of a sudden you remember, oh my gosh, I was supposed to do this, right? Because you're just running. So maybe that only happens to me, right? If you guys say it doesn't, I'm going to call you liars. But in essence, I love that daily. I love that daily roll up. So the moral of the story is you don't want to go into the week without a plan. You need to have a plan. And the more you're planned out, the better you're going to feel, right? Like overwhelmed feeling is underplanned, right? Think about just from the standpoint, like I know that Sherry, who's here watching, the broadcast, I know she likes to do meal planning for her family and for health reasons and things like that. When you know what you're cooking all week, oh my gosh, so much easier, right? Like when you don't know, that's so stressful to go home and, and then be like, oh crap, what's for dinner? And unfortunately for me, it happens more because I hate cooking, right? Like and you guys want to hear something funny? Did you know that it's possible for your kids to actually get sick of eating cereal and pizza for dinner? There was a time when my little ones were so little and we were so tired. We called it free for all, right? And now we don't do free for all very often, but they kind of want free for all now. But there was a time when they did not want free for all because free for all meant pizza or cereal. So now we're way more planned out, and free for all doesn't happen all the time, but they love free for all. So just moral of the story: don't wing it. Get a plan. Put that together. And so now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk a little bit about time blocking, and I'm going to share some calendars with you. And in the resources, remember we do have resources. I'll post the resources there again, bighelpertraining.com. So you can get a sample, get a blank calendar. It doesn't matter how you do it, but it's all about the process of how you do it, right? Like what's in there, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So now we talk about time blocking. So again, one of my, and we're still in play number 1, right? But we time block. Now there are so many different definitions of time blocking. And I heard recently an analogy about time blocking that was so appropriate that I want to share it with you guys. So time blocking sometimes can get a bad name, like especially in real estate, they're like, oh, you got a time block, I follow my time blocks. And I'm like, yeah, right. Like, but you do everything that you planned on your calendar. It doesn't always happen that way. So I want you to think of time blocking as hard time blocks and soft time blocks. So now I want you to ask yourself, If you set an appointment with a buyer or a seller, would you go to that appointment? Probably, right? Like you would absolutely go to that appointment. You want to make money for one, right? And you want to help people. So why is it that I will go to an appointment? If I set an appointment with Sherry, I'm gonna show up. If I set an appointment with Becky, I'm gonna show up, right? Like I'm gonna show up to the appointments that I set with other people. But then you guys set appointments with yourself. I'm gonna wake up at 5. I'm gonna go exercising. I'm gonna make my calls. And then that comes up on your schedule. And what do? You blow through it, right? I see it time and time again. We will keep the appointments we set with other people, but we will not keep the appointments we set with ourselves, which is kind of crazy, right? Like, I mean, that's bananas to me. And there's a really great podcast by Ed Milet that he talks about personal integrity with Heidi and Chris Powell. We'll have to put that somewhere. Maybe I'll put it in the resources. So go back and check the resources for that podcast because it's really good. If he talks about personal integrity, and that's for me, I'm like, wow, why is it that I will show up for everybody else, but I don't show up for myself? Is it because I lack personal integrity? Well, that kind of ticks me off because that's one of my core values is integrity. So something's got to change. I will tell you guys that the hardest appointment to keep is the one you set with yourself. You might want to write that down, right? The hardest appointment to keep is the one that you set with yourself because you're going to go easy on yourself. You're just going to be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Yep, I'll get there. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. You'll make a million excuses, okay? You'll make a million excuses to not keep the appointments that you set with yourself. So as you are building your time blocks, what goes in there? There's going to be hard time blocks and there's going to be soft time blocks. Now, hard time block in your current world would be when you set an appointment with somebody else, right? You set an appointment with a buyer, you set an appointment with a listing, and you're going to show up. Nothing is going to keep you from showing up. You're absolutely going to do that. And then you set other appointments that you kind of blow through. A lot of times that is like prospecting, right? Follow up, lead gen, the stuff that we don't really enjoy. So a lot of people don't want to time block because they say, well, I put that on my calendar, but then a buyer comes in and now, I got to meet with that buyer, so I can't make my calls. And so I would say, could you move your calls? Probably, if you had the discipline to move it to another spot and not blow through it, right? Like that's the big thing is you don't want to blow through your calendar, okay? And I'm going to show you examples in a minute. I'm going to pull up a calendar. So that means like if I've got an out-of-state buyer that's coming in and tomorrow I was going to make calls at 10, but the only time they're available is from 10 to 12, I'm going to take my call session and I'm going to move it. I'm not just going to blow through it. I'm going to move it, which makes it a soft appointment. Now, if I had a dentist appointment that I've been waiting for 6 months to get into, that would probably be a hard time block and I wouldn't schedule the buyer appointment in there. I'd just say, I absolutely can't do that. I've got this appointment. I've been waiting 6 months. Can we please do it at this time, right? I want to tell you that, and that's why it says right here, it says funnel your clients into appropriate time slots or into appointment slots. When you are planned ahead, your scripting is much better and it's easier to funnel. I want you to almost think like, for when I say funnel, I almost think of like, when they're herding cattle and they're kind of like putting them in chutes and they keep like, it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller until they finally get them where they want. That's what you're doing with your clients is you're going to funnel them or you're going to move them, position them into the time slots that work for you. The last thing that you want to do is say, sure, when would you like to see the house? They don't know your time commitments. Why would you give them full access to your schedule? They don't know what you're doing. So you have to be prepared to know, oh, I can do 2 o'clock or I can do 4 o'clock, afternoons or evenings, weekdays or weekends, right? Like start to funnel them. So that's the first thing that I'll start to say. I'll say, okay, perfect. So are weekdays or weekends better for you? Afternoons or evenings? Notice I never say mornings. My mornings are like, they are locked in place and it takes a lot for me to move something out of my morning. So I'll say afternoons or evenings, right? So the first thing I said was weekdays or weekends. So now that was the first funnel. Then I'm going to say afternoons or evenings. That's the second funnel. And then I'll give them a time, right? So does 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock sound better, right? And then they're like, oh, I can do 3. And I'm like, maybe I can do 3. But I'm never just going to say, I'm wide open, right? Like I'm not working with anybody. whatever you want. Nobody wants to work with an agent like that, right? Like, come on, seriously. You would pick a doctor that's like, I don't have patients for months, so when would you like to come in? I'll be like, I'm picking a new doctor. Like, that's crazy, right? Same thing. You don't want to appear as an agent that doesn't have anything going on. But most importantly, you don't want to give up your calendar to somebody else who doesn't know what your schedule is. So then the last thing before we look at this sample calendar is you want to start creating days by design. So one of the first things that Meryl and I realized when we had all of these kids in foster care before their adoptions were finalized is that there were a ton of meetings, right? Especially because we had different families. Not all of our kids are from the same family. And so we had, visits, and we had CPS coming to our house, and we had therapists, and, just all of these crazy, crazy meetings. And, we were just living in chaos. And I remember our coach said, well, why don't you just tell them when you're available? And Meryl and I kind of were like, we could do that? And this light bulb went off where we were just yielding ourselves to their schedule. And this light bulb went off, and we said, no, why don't we tell them when we're available? And so we started to give them days, right? Like, we can only do Monday afternoons. We can only do Thursday afternoons. We started to funnel all these meetings. And guess what happened, guys? 90% of the time it worked. Every once in a while, we had to move for a specialist or something like that. But we started creating these days by design where we would leave Monday afternoons open because we knew somebody was going to want to visit us, come into the house, talk to the kids, or something like that. And so we're still using that practice. Right now for me, Friday afternoons, Wednesday afternoons, those are a little bit more times where I'm flexible. So I'll schedule personal appointments, right? Same thing with doctor's appointments. We're always looking to schedule our doctor's appointments and our dentist appointments at specific times on specific days of the week, if possible, so we can anticipate that. And there are other things that we do for days by design. So let's look at this sample schedule. And I'm actually going to go ahead and pull myself out and just make this big if I can figure this out. Okay, so a couple things. The first thing when you are putting together a sample schedule, the first thing that you want to do is you actually want to put in your personal stuff, right? So when you're building your time blocks, the first thing you want to do is put everything in there that's personal. So right now, because we're e-learning, and it looks a little bit different for me, I just want to, full transparency, I have someone at my house with my kids. So I'm taking Monday mornings to help launch them for the day. Then I'm taking Wednesday to also help launch them. And then I'm doing Friday afternoon. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm really not help at all during the day for e-learning. I'm more, at nighttime we're practicing spelling or something like that. So the first thing that's in there, and you can see I've got, my exercise at 5:30. I'm getting ready from 6 to 7. And then this is like a little bit of a flex time for me. Yours is going to look different. I just want to give you some ideas of what's going into your calendar so that you know what you should be focused on. So first thing is all of your personal stuff, right? So if I had a doctor's appointment, if I had a date night with my husband, right? Like if I had different things like that, that would be in here. The second thing that you're going to want to put into your calendar is your prospecting, right? So that's part of what I call my HOP, or my hour of power, and that's prospecting. So that's the second thing that's going to go into my calendar. First, I'm going to start with all my personal things. So this is what I do on Sunday nights, guys. Remember, I'm looking ahead to see what do I need to do? What's my GPS for the next week? What do I want to accomplish? And I've already know my goals, which is going to be some of the other things that go in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in there prospecting. So I decided that this week I was going to do, I was going to make calls on Monday. I was going to make calls on Tuesday. Then I was going to do a call session in the evening on Wednesday. I was going to do calls again, like follow-up calls in my CRM on Thursday, but Friday I was going to change it up, and I'm actually going to be doing database calls and handwritten letters, right? Fridays is my days by design. I do a couple things on Friday. So we'll go back to that because I'm going to talk about a couple. Well, let's talk about days by design. So for me, Mondays is our seller day. We do all of our seller reports on Monday. So in our listing presentation and when working with sellers, we set the expectation that every Monday we're going to update you. We do this for a couple reasons. I really don't want the seller calling me all week long. Like, that's just going to take a lot of time. I want to give exceptional service, but I don't want to be at the beck and call of my sellers all week long, really messing with my schedule. So I let them know on Mondays, we're going to go over all the feedback. We're going to go over all the marketing. We're going to share with you everything we did in the past week and what we're going to be doing, moving forward, the plan for the next week. So they know to anticipate on Monday that they're going to get a seller update. So that's one of the first things that we focus in on Mondays. On Tuesdays, we focus in on our escrows. And this is where we're going to touch base with everybody that we have under contract, right? So this is where we let them know, hey, we're missing, this, and we're going to send this out for signatures. And this is where you're at. We're just waiting for the appraisal to come back, right? Like, this is that general touch for all the escrows of here's where we're at and what comes next, right? And our clients know that on Tuesdays, they're going to get an update. That's not to say if we did an inspection on Wednesday that we're not going to, write a Binzer on Thursday. That's not what we're saying. But in general, for everybody that's, past inspections and things, every Tuesday, they're going to get an update. They're going to get an update on Tuesday regardless, but that's really, our focus. And then for me, again, I have team meetings on Wednesday, and Friday is when I do my masterminds. So I actually have 2 different masterminds that I'm involved in. We have our EXP group that we meet together from 8 to 9 via Zoom. And then I have a team leader mastermind with top team leaders across the nation, and I do that. So my learning day, I try to put all my learning stuff on Fridays. And then I know right now, currently, I'm going to be going home early to, wrap up schoolwork and things like that. So the first thing, so those are some of my days by designs. I work on my database on Fridays. We work with sellers on Mondays. We work with buyers on Tuesdays. And then I typically work on my projects and things, throughout the week. So let's come back to the first thing that's on my calendar, everything personal. The second thing is all my prospecting, right? So now I know that I'm doing 4 hours of calls. If I was doing an open house, that would be right here or right here, right? Wherever that open house is. And you want to have a lot of prospecting in your calendar. Like if you want to be selling homes, you need to have a lot of prospecting in your calendar. Then I put in my projected appointments, right? So I'm looking to go on at least 3 new appointments a week and probably, continue to do some showings. Like I said, right now it's really rough with buyers. We're having to write multiple offers and just, there's just not enough inventory. So I'm looking to funnel people in from 2 to 4, except for Wednesday because I'm going to be making calls. And on Saturdays, now this is really, really important, guys, when we start to build out our Saturdays. If you're going to be showing homes, and let's face it, a lot of buyers want to go out on the weekend. If you're going to be showing homes on the weekend, you want to have appointment slots so that you can maximize your day. You do not want a buyer to say, hey, yeah, let's meet at 10:30. Well, that's going to totally screw up how many people you can meet with a day, right? And let's also face it, unless they are an out-of-state buyer and they have to buy a home that weekend, we do not need to be out with them all day long. You show them 6, 7 homes, they're going to start to forget, and it's just not going to be efficient. And I know that's really hard for us to stick to, but it's just a really, really good habit for you to get into. So I know that when someone says they want to go out Saturday, I'm going to say, okay, perfect. So morning or afternoon, right? Because I actually am going to be available on Saturday morning. And they say, okay, afternoon. I say, okay, perfect. I have 2 different slots. So I can do 12 to 2 or I can do 3 to 5. Which one would be best for you? So I'm already going to let them know that I have time frames, right? I never want to be, I've got all afternoon for you. We can show homes for 6 hours, right? That just none of you guys want to be in that position. I know that. So, so those are my projected time slots of when I'm going to go out on appointments. Now, the next thing that's going to go into my calendar is, remember my goals, and I'm reviewing those. That's what I call project time, right? So because I'm working with sellers on Monday and I'm working with buyers and under contract on Tuesday, I don't work on my projects on Monday and Tuesday because I already know that's going to be really busy. We get a lot of escrows over the weekend. So, right. And I've got my coaching call with my coach, and it's just busy. So I'm actually going to move that to Wednesday and Thursday. So Wednesday and Thursday was when I actually carve out time to work on the projects that I need, right? This is where we prioritize our progress. We say, okay, I'm going to finish that checklist, my buyer's checklist. I'm going to redo my listing presentation. It's important to put that in a time slot, because if you just have it as a to-do, you basically are just writing out quite frankly, you're writing out a, procrastination list. Until it's on your calendar, it really doesn't exist. So make sure you get it on your calendar. So this would be my task for you guys, right? Start to put together an idea of when you can do things. So I will also tell you that when I'm working on homeschool, all of my kids have a live at 9. I don't need to sit there and watch them be on that live. So I actually know at 9 o'clock, I'm going to be super efficient. I'm going to have a microburst, and I'm going to work really, really hard and get that appointment slot done. So feel free to throw in some questions about the calendar, because I know that we covered a lot with that, and we're going to continue to talk about that. But the rules to live by are: 1, first, all of your personal stuff goes into your calendar. 2nd, all of your lead generation and lead follow-up. 3rd, so part of lead generation, lead follow-up are those projected appointment slots. And then the 3rd thing is the projects that you're working on to move your business forward. And then if you run out of ideas, right, you're never going to run out of people you don't know, right? So if you're like, oh, I don't know what to do today, I'm going to give you a big clue. Make more calls, meet new people. You're never going to run out of people that you don't know, which means that if you're not sure what you're doing, that means that you need to be meeting new people and adding to your base, to your database, lead generation, lead follow-up. Okay, so that was the whole play number 1, right? Was, don't wing it. Okay, we know we're not going to wing it. We're gonna look for the winning moments, and then we're gonna do some time blocking. So let's talk about play number 2 that goes in with time blocking. And by the way, time blocking is a muscle that you build. So you're probably going to start small. When you start building your time blocks, you're going to start small. Just implement 1 time block, right? Then go to 2 time blocks. It does you no good to put together 10 time blocks and then blow through them all. Start small, build that muscle. And as you get stronger and more efficient, then you can be, you'll get more disciplined, and you'll see the benefits, and you'll see how much you can get done. So play number 2 is where you track and measure. So tracking and measuring, what does that look like? Well, tracking and measuring, the first thing I like to do is I like to set expectations. I've already ran through a couple scripts with you guys of how, I funnel clients into certain appointment slots, because I know that's going to be best for my schedule. The other thing that you want to do is you want to set expectations. If you work in a busy office and you only have 2 hours to make your calls, you don't have time to sit and chit chat, right? Now, you don't want to be rude, but set the expectations. So if I'm in an office, I'm going to say, hey guys, super excited to see you all. You know that I love to talk. I only have an hour to make my calls, so I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm going to sit here and make my calls. That's just setting the expectation, and nobody's going to think you're rude. And I often look at it as, when I'm in the office or when I am in a position of making my calls, that means that I'm away from my family. That means I'm away from, something that I really want to do, something fun. I mean, if you love making calls, good for you guys. That's awesome, right? It's what we do for a living. We talk to people. But when I'm doing, I'm doing this kind of work, that means I'm away from other things that I really want to be doing. So I keep that in the top of my mind, and I set expectations, and also setting expectations with my clients. So clients, they'll railroad you, right? Some people will call you at 9 o'clock at night and things like that. I always joke and I say, well, you're more than welcome to call me, but I'm going to be asleep. I go to bed at 8:30, and they always go, really? And I'm like, yep, I'm up at 5:30 or 5:30. So, that's just it. I set the expectation that I'm not going to be picking up their phone calls. I'm not going to be answering their text message or their emails, at late at night. It just doesn't happen, right? So, and then I set the expectation for myself, because I went through and I projected out my week. I now have expectations for myself. This week, I'm going to write a class for the forum on time blocking, right? Like I had it in my goal. I put together my slides. Like I knew what I was doing. I was fully focused and intentional. And of course, then I was able to do it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. All 7 of you. We lost some people. Maybe my husband. So the second thing is when you're looking at your schedule, I want you to remember the 70% rule and the HBUT, right? So what is HBUT? It stands for highest and best use of your time, right? So this is huge, guys. When you start to get into production, when you start to get busy, or if you're in production, you are going to get pulled in so many different ways, and you're going to get tempted. There's going to be shiny objects. You're going to get invitations to masterminds and networking and all of these different things. And it's all going to seem really, really great. But at the end of the day, every time you make a choice, you are either getting closer to your goals or you're getting farther away from your goals. And that's why we review our goals every day. So now all of a sudden I have choices to make. Am I going to go this way or am I going to go this way? I can say, okay, is this getting me closer to my goal or is it getting me farther away from my goal? So HBUT stands for highest and best use of your time. So this is where you lean heavily on amazing partners, right? Like here at the forum, I know they partner with Magnus Title, and Nicole Chambray has like incredible things that she can do to help you guys with marketing things. So let's talk about, is it your highest and best use of time to spend 7 hours building a flyer? Or would it be better to do an open house and make calls and do follow-up and door knock? Highest and best use of time. What is your highest and best use of time? You make the most amount of money when you are going on appointments, setting appointments, negotiating contracts, and closing deals, right? So lead generation, lead follow-up, negotiations, and closings. That's where you make all of your money. So now you have to look and say, okay, let's track and measure. Go back to last week, okay? This is a good exercise for you guys. Go back to last week, jump into your calendar, and were you doing a minimum wage task, right? Like, were you designing a flyer? Were you, who knows? There's so many different things that you could be doing that's minimum wage. Or were you doing what your highest and best use of time is and what you get paid the most to do? You get paid hundreds of dollars an hour to sell homes. So let's make sure 70% of your time is spent on income generating activities. Income generating. Like, let's make sure that we're making money, we're bringing the money in. And if you find that most of your time is spent on non-income generating activities, you really need to reevaluate what's the highest and best use of your time and what you need to be working on. And then of course, my project time. I'm evaluating my project time to make sure that I'm moving. I mentioned that a couple of different times. It's an operations meeting. That's just, a review of your doing, and done. And then, there's daily accountability, or even getting an accountability partner. I mentioned getting a mastermind. Find like 4 people that, hey, we're all interested in KV Core and we want to build out campaigns on KV Core. So jump on a Facebook group page, see if there's anybody else that wants to work on that. Then you guys get together and you work on it together so that you have accountability and you move that project forward, right? Hopefully that makes sense. So couple things that I just wanted to show with you is, we try to make it fun, right? So we've done a couple different things. And I'm going to make my screen big again so you can see. The one on the left, this is called daily accountability. So we put together, and by the way, we built these in Google Sheets. So this is just a Google sheet, so we can customize it, we can make it different. I do have samples on the materials. So again, if you go to bighelpertraining.com, you will be able to find samples of these. You actually be able to make a copy of them in Google, and then you can totally customize them for yourself. So we have 2 different ways to track and measure. The most important thing is that you're tracking and measuring, because again, what you track and measure improves. So the first one on the left, we call this daily accountability. We put these in really nice little slick binders for our team members, spiral bound, so that you can track and measure every day. So up on the top, some of the things that are on here is, did you start working for the time on your calendar? Did you role play? Did you have an hour of power? Did you make your calls? Call 5 people you know, 5 people you don't know, 5 follow-up calls, and make 1 video, right? That's the 5-5-5-1. It's an iteration off of Tom Ferry stuff, but did you check the hot sheets, right? Did you set an appointment or do another hour power? So you can kind of like use this as a checklist. Then you can keep all your notes here. What's going to make today a win? What's my goal for the week? And what's my goal for the month? And then, of course, affirmations, gratitudes. Where are you at? Tracking your numbers year to date. Like, how am I at my goal? What's my goal? What's the difference? Then down here is where we start to track our conversations. Like, how many new people did I speak today? How many nurtures did I make, right? How many buyer appointments did I set, seller appointments did I set, and then how many appointments did I go on? Because tracking these numbers lets you know how efficient you're going to be. Because again, you can say, oh my gosh, Kristi, I'm so tired. I worked all day long. And I'll say, okay, cool. How many people did you talk to? 2, right? Like, that's not an efficient day. Your highest and best use of time is making calls, lead generation, and lead follow-up. So this is kind of a guide. The other way we do it is super fun. So if you more like want to gamify it, you totally can do that. And with the gamify, we call it the 100-point daily success checklist. And again, you can customize these based on what you really love to do. So the fun part is it doesn't matter what you do as long as you get to 100 points each day. If you get to 100 points each day, then you know that you've done your best, right? So you followed your schedule, you get 5 points. You did a social media post, you get 1 point. You touched 5 past clients, you get 5 points. You did an open house, you did some door knocking, right? You wrote an offer, you got a listing appointment, a buyer appointment, you went to some showings, you did a closing, right? And then some life points, right? Like, I read for 30 minutes, or I did exercise, or I did some meditation. Again, you could totally change that. Prayer, scripture study, time with my family. And of course, tracking appointments, tracking showings, same thing. Today I'm grateful for. Today I will. What are my affirmations? You can kind of see some of the themes that are going through here. But at the end of the day, what you're looking for is, this is just another guide for you to like kind of trigger your memory, but most importantly, so you can go back and track what it is that you've been doing. So when you say, oh, I've been working so hard, you can actually say, wow, my conversations are up. I've got 25 more conversations than I did last week. When Angela Fazio was our coach, one of the things that we had this like massive revelation, because she had been trying to get Merrill to track and measure for a really long time, and he wasn't doing it. And then I joined him, and then I was like, oh yeah, let's track and measure. And I made it simple for him, but we kind of found our number, and our number was 100. If we could talk to 100 people in a week, it didn't matter where they came from, we got a new contract. And that was our magic number. So it was really interesting. As we started tracking, we were like, okay, this is awesome. Every 100 people we talk to, we get a new contract. But the only way we knew that is because we were tracking and measuring. Now, I will share with you that one of my favorite tools for tracking is called CTE. Now, I don't get paid by them, so this isn't like a paid advertisement or anything, but it's called CTE, Committed to Excellence. And I'll make my screen big again. And what CTE is, it's super cheap. It's like $30 a month, but it tracks everything in your business. You can track, look at that: cash flow, appointments, conversations, all of the metrics, how many pending, how many closed, how many active buyers, how many listings, and you can start to see all the GCI. These little gauges tell you how close you are on your goals. It's got whiteboards, it's mobile friendly. So Committed to Excellence is one of my favorite tools. I highly recommend it for anybody who wants more clarity in their business. Again, I don't get paid by them, but it's just a product that I absolutely believe in. So another thing I want you to start asking yourself is, does this need to be done by me, or can this be done by somebody else? I see so many agents getting caught up in the weeds, right? Like, again, highest and best use of your time. 70% of your working time should be spent on income generating activities. So first thing I'm going to say, guys, get a transaction coordinator. Like, it is not worth. Here in Arizona, you can get a transaction coordinator for like $350. If you hire some of the best ones that I know, you can get some for less expensive, but it is not worth the mental energy and the time, right? Some people say, oh, but it only takes me a minute. And I say, yeah, that's great. Guess what? If it took you 5-10 minutes each day, how much time would that be in a month? You just cost yourself another sale, right? Just cost yourself a $6,000 commission check. So is that worth $300 per transaction? No, it's not. But it's not just the money, guys. It's not just the money. It's the mental space of what's that taking up. So the first thing, my recommendation is absolutely hire a transaction coordinator, because that is not the highest and best use of your time at all. And I know that's pretty firm, but I believe it. So second thing is, don't be afraid to use a virtual assistant. They can do lots of different things. We have virtual assistants that they do so much for us in terms of just like paperwork managing and social media posts, and a virtual assistant is a fraction of the cost. So don't be afraid as you start to pick up production to use a virtual assistant, and maybe you can even share a virtual assistant with another agent, right? At some point, you're going to need to get an assistant, because if you do not have an assistant, then you are the assistant. And there's a lot of things that assistant can help you. And the first assistant, that might be a really fun class for us to do, is how to hire your first assistant. But your first assistant is going to be a jack of all trades. They're going to do transaction management. They're going to do some marketing. They're going to do a lot of different things. But at some point, you are going to need to get a transaction coordinator and or an assistant to help you manage everything. Otherwise, you're just going to be frustrated because you're not getting everything done that you want to get done. Now, there's also really cool apps like TaskRabbit and Tackle. They can do things for you at a cost, right? So you could have someone come cut your lawn. You could have someone pick up your dry cleaning. There are apps that will allow you to do that. And then that's the other thing is we talked about this in the beginning. At some point in time, you're going to buy your time back, right? Like I buy time now. I have someone that cleans my house. I have someone that helps me with my children. I still love doing certain things, and I still do a lot at my house, but that person does a lot for me so that I'm not so stressed out and I'm not so angry all the time that my house is always dirty, right? Like, because that's what happened for me is there came a point, I remember I was just like so fed up with laundry that I was just angry all the time, and that's not worth it. Pay someone to help you with your laundry so you can be happier and you can be nicer, if that's your thorn in your side. Could be something else that's your thorn in your side. Like I said, mine's laundry. So now I want to talk about some busy life hacks, and we're wrapping this up. So if you have hung in here, I appreciate you for hanging in here. And this is kind of the Q&A type time where we can take some questions and do some things like that. And but let's talk about some busy life hacks. Now, before COVID, pre-COVID, it was so much smoother. Right now, stores are out a lot of stuff, and so I'm still doing many of these things, but I've had to modify. Like, I actually do have to go to the grocery store now sometimes, just because they can't fulfill my order online. But this is no joke, guys. I'm gonna make my screen big here for a minute. This is just an example of like 1 week of grocery shopping, and people, they look at you crazy. And I remember absolutely hating going to the grocery store because I always would get comments like the checkers, and they'd be like, "Oh, you must have a really big family." And I'd be like, "Yeah, how many kids do you have?" 7, right? And then they would just say the stupidest things, like just ridiculous. I remember one lady said like, "Oh, you haven't figured out how that happens?" I was like, "Really? Did you say that to me?" But no joke, I would spend 3-4 hours a week in the grocery store just to get the groceries for my family. And so I knew there had to be a better way. When they introduced, online grocery shopping, that was one of the first things that I did that instantaneously saved me hours, right? Saved me hours and hours and hours. And I really, really, at that point in time, I just like dug in. I was like, okay, that's it. I know exactly, what we're going to do. We are going to automate an online purchase as much as possible. So yes, I'm an Amazon fanatic, right? Like, in fact, Amazon Subscribe is one of my favorite features because now I no longer run out of toilet paper. Even during the pandemic, my toilet paper shipped to me from Amazon from my Amazon Subscribe. I don't run out of laundry detergent. I do not run out of deodorant. I don't run out of trash bags, paper towels, right? Like those non-perishable items that you kind of have to buy every single month. I just use Subscribe from Amazon, and every month I get my toothpaste and I get like these things that make it so easy for me that I don't even have to think about, right? Imagine that your dog food just shipped every month and you didn't have to think about it. With Amazon too, I don't feel like I'm overpaying, right? But then let's go back to online grocery shopping. Again, why is that so important? Because I build lists, right? So I know that we're probably going to have spaghetti at least once a week. So in my grocery list, I already know what I need, right? Like it's right there. I know my kids like elbow noodles, and I also know that we need 2 cans of spaghetti sauce, right? Like it's just boom, 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 boom. It's right there. So using lists and using subscribe and save and shopping online, you will be absolutely surprised when you take yourself out of the store how much time you're going to save. So I'm going to challenge you to get rid of old thoughts and habits and jump into that. So here are some of my absolute favorite tools. Again, I'm going to be doing a more in-depth training on these tools next month. So this is just kind of a list that I want to share with you. So the first one, obviously online grocery orders, even Costco does it. And guys, like I know that I am not the only person that went into Costco for like toilet paper and came out with a canoe, right? Like it just happens. It happens. I didn't need a canoe, but it was on sale and I walked out with a canoe, right? And then I forgot the toilet paper probably. So let's talk about these. Amazon subscription, super, super big. You need to start using the apps that we have, here, your mobile MLS, right? Such an amazing app. Being able to be proficient with your mobile MLS and looking up homes on the fly and being able to answer questions. Get proficient with that. HomeSnap. HomeSnap is one of my favorite apps on my phone for when we're like in a neighborhood, right? Like, so in terms of like, we're driving through a neighborhood and they say, well, how come you didn't show me this home? And I'm like, let me see. Right? I have no idea why I'm not showing you that home. And I'll pull it up on HomeSnap and I'll just push the little GPS. It knows exactly where I'm at. And then I can see that home. And then I know if it's under contract or, well, this only has 3 bedrooms and you said 4 bedrooms specifically, right? Or, there's so many different reasons why we might not see. So the other one that I like to use HomeSnap for, and this is kind of cheeky, but I like to look up other agents. So if I get like a really bad contract on a listing, I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this person? And I will use HomeSnap and I will look them up to see their production. Or if I am in a listing appointment and they tell me who they're interviewing, I will look them up in HomeSnap if I don't know them. And then I can see what their production is. So I really like HomeSnap. You can also advertise with HomeSnap. I don't advertise with them. I don't have anything against it. I don't know anything about that personally. Evernote. Oh my gosh, guys. Evernote. So Google does everything. Like I can do everything in Google and I still use Evernote because Evernote has so many plugins and it does voice recording. It does pictures. Here's the best part, right? So I use Evernote to track important information. You can even take a handwritten document, take a picture of it, put it in Evernote, and then you can search, right? So I can write myself a note, like if I'm at a conference, I'm in a training, I write myself a note, I snap a picture of it, so my notes, I put it in Evernote, and then later on I say, what was that app that she said, Time Savers or something like that? And I go into Evernote, it can actually even search your handwritten notes. So Evernote is amazing. You can cut out articles. You can do a lot of different things. So if you're not familiar with Evernote, I highly encourage you to, because again, it also does voice dictation. So you can record notes for yourself. A lot of times when I go to an important meeting, I will turn on my Evernote record so that it records the meeting as I'm taking my notes and I can go back and I can listen. So Evernote is amazing. Absolutely love it. Okay, Zapier. Zapier is a tool that I do not want you to be afraid of, but Zapier is a connection tool. What Zapier and both IFTTT, what Zapier does is it connects one technology to another technology. So here's what's really cool. Zapier can connect your Google Calendar to your email, right? We use Zapier in a lot of different ways in our business, but for instance, like you get a new lead, you can get a text message. There's a lot of different ways that you can use Zapier to connect devices. So just kind of know that that's the tool. IFTTT stands for if this, then that. That's one of the coolest apps out there, right? Like it's really, really cool because you can say, if it says it's going to rain, I want you to send me an email, right? Like an email to get my umbrella. Like you can link Facebook, you can link Evernote, you can link Instagram, you can link news articles that if this happens, then do this. If I, leave my house, then alarm goes off, right? Like you turn on the alarm. There's endless possibilities between Zapier and IFTTT. Both of them are amazing. I already mentioned CTE, but then I also wanted to mention QuickBooks, guys, or some sort of financial software. You should be running a P&L every single month, a profit and loss statement, so you know what you're what you're doing. One of my favorite apps that I use a lot is called Ripple, IRPL. And if you're not super, like I don't edit video and things like that, Ripple's really cool because you can make small videos, you can put slideshows together, you can do a lot of different things, and you can brand it, and it connects with Facebook and Instagram, really easy. So it's a great tool to use for a realtor to just do some nice posts that look like really slick. Folio is for Gmail. And now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk a lot about Gmail because that's probably where a lot of you guys are just spending loads and loads of time. We are like down to like 5 people because we're talking about the not so fun stuff. I'm going to take out one headphone because it's dead. But hopefully we'll charge that one. We're almost done. We're almost on the home stretch, guys, I promise. So Folio is really cool because it's a transaction organization, so transaction management organization plugin to your Gmail that helps you organize transaction. It recognizes like who the listing agent is, who the title escrow officer is. It recognizes the address and it applies labels and it just really keeps you organized. So Folio is one that is a tool that's really, really great for email in terms of helping you keep your email organized and just managing transactions in terms of all of those emails, right? Because we get tons of emails per transaction and it organizes it all for you. Okay, so one of my secret weapons, one of my favorite tools, and because a couple of you guys have stayed on for the whole thing, you get to hear it, right? Everybody who left, they don't get to hear the secret sauce. So Boomerang for Gmail is one of the best tools that I use. So it is what's called a Google Chrome plugin. So Google Chrome is the browser, right? And you just go to your plugins and it kind of puts in there. But what it does is it works with your Gmail account. It does a lot of different things. It can track emails, right? So I can see if someone opened up my email or if they've never opened it up. I can boomerang it, right? So I can send an email out and say, if I don't get a response, how many times do you not get responses from people in a transaction? A lot, right? It depends on if we're working with a good agent or a not so good agent. So you can boomerang that email and say, if I don't get a response in 24 hours, put this back in my inbox, right? So then you remember that you didn't get an answer from them. So that's another one of the features. You can set constant emails to go out, meaning I can set a reoccurring email that goes out every single Tuesday, every single first of the month, right? Like it's very, very flexible, but you can send reoccurring emails, which is really cool. A lot of my reoccurring emails are emails for myself that are reminders or emails for other people of things that I need. You can schedule an email to go out, right? So sometimes when I'm working at like 5 in the morning and I need to get a couple things done, I can schedule those emails to go out a little bit later, right? Or get this, right? Here's like, how do we practically use this in a practical application? Let's say you have clients that are having birthdays next week and you want to send them a really cool email, but you don't want to like send it out on Thursday. You can craft the email now and then say, I want to send this Thursday at 9 a.m., right? There's the magic in that. You can draft emails now and send them later, okay? So that's just some of the functionality of Boomerang. It's such an amazing tool. I highly recommend it to just keep your email organized. And again, all those cool things that it does, it saves you a lot of time because if I have a thought now, but I don't want that email to go out, I can schedule it to go out at a different time. Snooze by Gmail. So this is a feature that you have to turn on in your settings. This is going to blow your mind. When I figured out Snooze, it was one of my absolute favorite tools. And it's just exactly what it says, snooze, right? Like you're going to take an email and you're going to just have it come back to you at a different time so I can schedule it, right? So an email comes in and I'm like, oh, I can't deal with this right now. I don't like a cluttered inbox. I use my inbox as, I'm not one of those people that has thousands of emails in my inbox. That would drive me bananas. My mom is, and that drives me bananas. I'm like, clear out your inbox. It's no wonder she doesn't respond to my emails. So if I get an email and I can't deal with it, I'll hit my snooze button and I'll pick, when do I want this to come back to me, right? So I snooze it to come back to me at a specific time that I know that I'm going to be able to deal with it. So love, love, love that. The next big email hack is called canned emails, right? And these are pre-written emails. So for instance, if you oftentimes find yourself, referring out a lender or referring out a couple lenders, right? Like those are emails that you send all the time. Or for instance, opening up an escrow, right? Like there's a couple things when you kick off a contract, there's a couple things that are always in there, right? You can create those emails in advance. They're called canned emails in Gmail. You can draft those in advance. So then when you go to write an email, you just go to canned emails, you pick it up, it populates in your email, and you can just change a couple things. It's going to save you so much time when you start to really dig into those. Grammarly, I love Grammarly. I just use the free version that helps me make sure that my spelling's right and commas are right, things like that. And Grammarly works over everything. It works in my CRM, it works in Google. So it's just a really nice, easy tool. BombBomb is one of my favorite tools. It's pretty expensive. I want to say, BombBomb is going to cost you $450 a year, but I promise you it is so worth it. It plugs into my Gmail, it plugs into my CRM. I've got the app on my phone, and it allows you, it's an email service provider for one. So if you use BombBomb, you don't need MailChimp, you don't need the other one, I forget what it's called, but you don't need an email service provider because it is one. And it's video based. You can create templates, you can create forms and different things like that. So we could do a whole class on BombBomb because it's just amazing. Google Calendar, it's my favorite. Google, I love them over Outlook. I love them over, I have Apple everything. Like I'm an Apple fanatic, but I don't use iCal and I don't use, an Apple email address. I am strictly Google. Calendly, home stretch guys, Calendly is another one of the tools that I use. Calendly is how I share my calendar with other people to schedule with me, right? Have you ever been caught up in that, like that whole back and forth of, oh, when are you available? I'm available this time. Okay, well, I'm not. And that, that's just, that's a time suck. So I set up rules in Calendly, and then I just send out my link. So it syncs with your Google Calendar. So if you have something on your calendar, someone can't set it up. I have a video on how to set up Calendly. If you want some tools on that, just shoot me an email or and let me know, and I'll send it over to you. I'll post my email here in a minute. Trello is a great free software tool to manage your do, doing, and done board. Again, we can do trainings on all of these. I am going to be doing training next month on many of these. Slide Dial is a really cool tool because you can just drop a message for some like chatty person that you don't want to talk to. It literally drops the message in their inbox. You can do it on mass as well through Slide Broadcast. So you could drop a mass, and you've probably been slide dialed or slide broadcast. I love Audible because that's where I get all of my learning from and all of my fun books that I listen to in the car, and podcasts. I'm a big advocate of turn off the radio. Audible, podcast, use that drive time to educate yourself. And then most importantly, I would say, if you do not have a CRM, get one, because that's just a colossal waste of time. I have tested most of them, and so I'm happy to give you some opinions on them if you'd like. But at the end of the day, you just need something, right? Like you absolutely have to have a client relations management software. My favorite ones happen to be ones that are connected to a website, but they don't always have to be. Like Follow Up Boss is pretty inexpensive, and it has an API with many, many, many different softwares, and it's a great way to manage your clients. And Follow Up Boss also, I don't use them, but I'm just giving an example. They also do client follow-up. So like Top Producer is a client relations management software. Contactually is client relations management software, meaning that it manages your contacts. It's not lead follow-up though, right? So that's going to be more like Follow Up Boss, Sierra Interactive, Chime, Boomtown, KV Core. But then also Boomtown, Chime, KV Core, Commissions Inc., Sierra Interactive, they also have a front end site. So there's a lot of different things to think about when you're looking at a CRM, but most importantly, you just have to have one and you got to use it. So to wrap this bad boy up, I just want to let you guys know that the minutes you need are all around you, right? I mentioned at the beginning of this class, it's mostly behavioral change, Get up a little bit early, right? Track and measure. Don't be stubborn, okay? Try to embrace new technology. Try to leverage whatever you can, right? Like, don't be stubborn. If you could even save 5 minutes a day, right? By the end of the week, how much more time is that, right? And then you compound that over a month. The next thing you know, you just gained hours back of your life by making small, simple changes. So that's why I say the minutes you need are all around you. We've just got to be looking for them. And I would start small. One of my favorite books is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And I absolutely love that book because he talks a lot about like small, seemingly insignificant changes compound over time to make a really, really, really big difference. So, and then mostly, again, just give up old beliefs, utilize technology. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid of technology. I promise you there's someone that will help you. If you feel like you can't do it, there'll be somebody that'll help you. And so lastly, I absolutely love this quote by Jim Rohn because it really helps me prioritize what it is that I want to do, right? If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse, right? We don't hear excuses. We only see effort. So let's make sure that we are looking at our goals and that our calendars are aligned with our goals. So I really want to thank you guys. That's totally wrong. I just got to take that out because it's got a wrong one. I'll put it up here. So lastly, I'll just put up real quick how to get a hold of me. So Kristi at bighelpergroup.com. And then that's my cell phone number. Of course, you can just reach me at Kristi Jencks on Facebook and Instagram. And then, of course, bighelpertraining.com is where you're going to find the resources from today's training. If you liked it, let the forum know that we want to do this again. You know, maybe we can get some additional people out, make this a little bit bigger, because again, next month I'm going to be doing a training on all of those amazing tools. We're going to talk about how to apply them into your business to get you back even more time. But I do appreciate you guys being here today, especially Sherry. I know she's juggling her beautiful girls, open houses, things like that. Start small. Small changes will compound over time. You will get the minutes that you need. Remember, that's one of my affirmations. I have the time I need to do all that is required of me. I know that you will do the same thing. So have a great day. Have an awesome weekend. Go sell some houses and be safe.